A young man named Sel enters his neighbor's apartment to fix her shower head. After he completes the repair, the woman invites him for tea with cookies. Sel glances at the owner's husband, who is sitting in an armchair reading a newspaper, seemingly paying them no attention. However, shortly afterward, employees from the company Eternum arrive and pack the homeowner's body into a special casket, while his wife continues chatting about noisy neighbors. The man's body is taken away to the company's enormous hangar, which offers services for renting a living body to another consciousness. A little later, all the body renters awaken, not remembering what had occurred while their bodies were being controlled by the dead. Sel, too, constantly recalls his wife Zoe, who perished in a car accident, and he just cannot cope with this loss. He replays her memories, which displeases his sister Abby, an employee at Eternum. She warns Sel that tomorrow she will restrict his access to Zoe's data. Once again, loud music emanates from above. The man finds his wife's old music player, and, plugging his ears, he begins to prepare breakfast, then takes pills washed down with alcohol. When Abby comes to see her brother, she notices an empty pill bottle and rushes to clean out his stomach. Later, she goes to Zoe's parents and persuades them to use Eternum services, since although it will be a different body, Zoe's memories and character will remain intact within it, but the father flatly refuses and kicks her out. Then Abby grants them access to her own memory and recommends they give it serious thought. Meanwhile, Sel is strolling through the city when he notices a girl on a platform who reminds him of Zoe. He stands behind her and imagines that his wife has returned, but then a train arrives. They board a carriage and part ways. Another option is to offer the bereaved a second chance to say goodbye to their lost loved ones and prepare for eternal separation. The memories and consciousness of the deceased are transferred to a suitable host. The selection of a body is determined by a compatibility calculation, which also sets the number of sessions with relatives. The host brain absorbs the deceased's memories every time they fall asleep, completely shutting out their own. But upon waking, they forget everything and return to their own lives. However, this process cannot be repeated indefinitely. All of this Abby explains to a new client of the firm, handing her an origami paper with detailed simulation information. After the client leaves, Zoe's mother enters Abby's office. The next day, the company's employees begin preparing Sel for a meeting with his wife and explain the rules he will have to follow. They take away Zoe's favorite dress and warn him not to tell her that she is dead. Then they recreate a scene that could have happened if Zoe had survived the accident. They are taken in an ambulance, where the girl, into whom Zoe's consciousness was transferred, wakes up and starts talking to Sel as his wife would. This causes conflicting emotions in him, and after they arrive at the hospital, Sel jumps out of the car and tells his sister that he has changed his mind, asking her not to bring this girl to his apartment since she doesn't resemble Zoe at all. At night, he decides to go up to his neighbor's apartment to ask them to turn the music down. The door is opened by a woman who promises to speak to her daughter, who is blasting music throughout the house. Immediately, her husband appears and offers Sel a drink as a form of neighborly introduction. Sel enters the apartment, where he hears the mother scolding her daughter. However, soon both the husband and the daughter lose consciousness because they both become body renters. The neighbor explains that her husband and daughter died in a fire. Sel is surprised that they both shut down at the same time. The woman explains that there is a synchronization function that allows two absent individuals to switch off and on simultaneously. Moreover, her husband and daughter see each other as they once were, and she herself has long understood that the body is merely a shell. The important part is what lies inside. The next day, Sel consults Dr. Doyle, asking for help in learning how to see his wife in her former appearance. The doctor points to a painting in his office, where each viewer can see their own, either a duck or a rabbit, and explains the principle of dual perception. If a person sees a duck and is not told about the rabbit, he might never notice the other image. But if he has already seen both objects, a duck and a rabbit, his brain will not be able to forget the second interpretation, as he has acquired a new understanding. The same applies to his deceased wife, for unlike the neighbor and her daughter, Sel knows that his loved one is no longer there. The company could alter his perception, but only if he did not know about Zoe's death. The doctor warns that the absent must not find out about their demise. Once they realize it, they will not be able to identify themselves in another body and, after another sleep, will die irretrievably. Dr. Doyle advises Sel to have an argument with Zoe to activate vivid memories and sensations. Let them be unpleasant, but at least recognizable, and that is the quickest way to get used to the new body and make contact. Sel comes to terms with the fact that he will never be able to see his wife as she once was and agrees to continue with the alternative ending. Sometime later, the girl with Zoe's consciousness wakes up in the morning in Sel's apartment and, while preparing breakfast, casually chats with him as if nothing had happened. He inquires about her new book, then deliberately provokes a conflict. Zoe, feeling irritated, starts raising her voice, and an argument ensues between them. But when Zoe is about to leave the apartment, Sel quickly calms her down, and they immediately make up. Later, he shares with his sister his impressions from the first session with Zoe, expresses his gratitude for her convincing him, and apologizes for his pill incident. His sister photographs him to capture his smile, which she hadn't seen in a long time. Abby reminds him that he shouldn't waste any time and advises him to prepare for a farewell with Zoe. The following evening, the couple spends time watching a movie accompanied by Chinese food and alcohol. The pleasant atmosphere nudges the pair toward intimacy. Sometime later, they visit Zoe's parents. The evening goes on a good note. Zoe is particularly impressed that Sel managed to read her scientific book. When bidding farewell to Zoe's parents, she notices the strange reaction of a dog and the distress of the father. She encourages and hugs the man while he cries, saying goodbye to his daughter forever. Later, Dr. Doyle gives Sel advice regarding the final meeting with his wife, during which he must express everything he couldn't say to her and let his beloved go. Once he tells her about her death, the farewell will be complete. However, Sel is not ready for such a step and asks for more time. Realizing he couldn't let go of his wife, Sel turns to his sister and asks her to increase the number of meetings. Abby tells him that by doing so, she risks her job, but she promises to speak with management. After the evening meeting with Zoe, knowing that she is about to vanish from his life, Sel goes to a club where he drinks some hard liquor and heads to the dance floor, trying to forget his pain. But suddenly, he sees a girl in the crowd whose body is rented by Zoe. Without really knowing why, he follows her. Meanwhile, at work, Dr. Doyle once again asks Abby to finish what she is doing. Otherwise, he will have to report it. In response, Abby reminds him of what he did for his mother and advises him not to interfere. At the same time, Sel finds himself in an adult club where he learns that the girl works there. In the morning, Zoe tells her husband that she had a bad dream. Sel notices a bruise on her and realizes that her clients are not always gentle with her. The last of the additional sessions ends, and the girl who rents out her body, upon waking, tells Abby that she saw Zoe's death. Abby relays this to Sel and explains that prolonged coexistence leaves a mark on the host's brain. Abby knows that Sel saw her because the manager has geolocation enabled, and she strongly urges him not to forget that he must detach himself from his feelings for the shell. Using manipulation, Sel claims that she wants him to suffer. After all, when he feels pain, Abby feels less lonely. His sister cries and asks him not to say such things, but she still agrees to arrange one final meeting. In the evening, the spouses broach the subject of children. The fact is, when his wife was alive, Sel wasn't ready for fatherhood. However, now he isn't afraid of it and hopes they will be good parents. The next day, Sel attends an Eternum clients meeting, where he hears from a neighbor about how hard it was for her to say goodbye to her loved ones. After she informed them of the death, her husband unexpectedly left before her daughter did. She spent a lot of time with the girl while she was crying and saying she didn't want to die. The doctor advises choosing one object that reminds one of the departed and trying to live without it. Sel chooses the music player. In the evening, he goes to an establishment where he orders a private dance with that very girl. During her dance, Sel can't hold back his tears. Later, he waits for her outside, and when she comes out, she immediately recognizes the emotional client. He explains that he cried because he was left without a wife. She invites him to her home. In the apartment, she immediately starts taking off her clothes, thinking that's what the client wants. But Sel asks the girl if he could simply just be with her. She refuses him, asking him to leave. In the morning, the girl feels strange, and upon arriving at work, she tries to figure out what is going wrong. Sel goes to the club again and learns that her name is Ava. He confesses that his wife died, to which Ava advises him to make friends. Sel inquires about the Eternum origami that is lying in her apartment, and Ava admits that she rents out her body. But the man noticed that it's for clients, not for the body owners. And that means she too cannot let someone go. Yet Ava leaves, adding farewell that she lacks the courage to end her own life. Later, he comes to her with Chinese food that Zoe used to love. Ava says she can't stand Chinese cuisine, and Sel admits that he doesn't like it either, but he wants to apologize. The pair go for a walk. She explains that by renting out her body, she hopes that someone depressed will be able to solve their problems. And suddenly, she asks about having children. Upon learning that they don't have any, she confesses that she had contacted the company to get her child back. But she couldn't come up with what to say to him, so she abandoned the idea. The next day, the couple visits an exhibition of memories of the departed, and Sel reveals that he had illegally viewed Zoe's memories since his sister works at Eternum. Ava confesses that she would feel uncomfortable if someone were to view her memories. And Sel explains that in his memories, people would see a lot of shoes because during particularly important moments, he distinctly remembers them. Later, while riding the metro, Sel inadvertently looks at Ava's boots, and noticing this, she smiles. Sel brings the girl to his place, and Ava admits that she likes him. That's exactly why she invited him to her apartment, even though she had never done so before. But upon seeing him, she suddenly realized that she wouldn't mind sleeping in the same bed with him. Ava kisses Sel. After he steps out for a short while, she looks around and finds the music player that she had seen in her dream. Sel tells her the whole truth, confessing that he was responsible for the accident. Ava becomes distraught, realizing the full extent of the situation, and leaves. The next day, she goes to Eternum to speak with the woman who registered her. Later, Abby visits Sel and tells him that Ava came by, but she promises not to tell anyone about what happened. Sel thanks Abby for everything she has done for him, but before he leaves, Abby begs her brother to talk with Ava, as this girl surprised her very much. However, Sel replies that he doesn't need it and asks his sister not to worry about him. In the evening, Sel goes to Ava to apologize, but soon realizes he's actually facing Zoe. The tearful wife asks if he was honest about discussing parenthood. Sel falls silent, and Zoe explains that the body's owner had spoken with his sister, urging her to wake her one last time to reveal the truth. Not understanding what truth she means, Sel listens as she clarifies that she was awakened to say goodbye, asking him never to blame himself. Neither of them truly survived that catastrophe. At the same time, Abby is crying in her office. Then she gathers her things, including photos of the owners, whose bodies were occupied by the consciousness of her late brother. It becomes clear that Abby had been breaking the rules for a long time, as she could not come to terms with her brother's death. She leaves the office with a box of her belongings and looks at Doyle, who apparently did turn her in to the higher-ups. In the evening, in Ava's apartment, two people lie in bed and look at each other before turning off the light. And in the morning, upon opening their eyes, they realize that they are together. The film isn't about spectacle, but more about feeling, experiencing, and contemplating. The only fantastic element is the idea without which the entire plot, about guilt, hope, memories, and love for the departed, with its unexpected twist and rare aftertaste, would not have come to be.